Good afternoon. Welcome back, travelers. Do you have any in here? That right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it. That drive sucks.
Yeah. No, I'm flying, dude. Okay. Or taking my time on my way out there. All right. So, hey, yesterday we were talking about the Harding administration. Okay. And there were 4 things he wanted to do as a Republican president. He wanted to higher tariffs, good. Cut taxes, veterans pensions, smaller government. Yeah, less spending. Okay. So we got through quite a bit of that. We talked about the tariffs. Okay, if you missed that, you might want to go watch the video because you're going to explain that on the test. Okay, on tariffs. Okay, that will be a long answer question. Okay. Now the veteran compensation. Remember, this doesn't come up to maturity until 1945. They could borrow up to 25%, so roughly about $200. Actually, this was vetoed by Harding and Coolidge, and Congress supported it so much they overrode those vetoes. Okay, Coolidge especially hated spending taxpayer money. Okay, he did not want to tax you. He did not want to spend. Okay, when Lindbergh flies across the Atlantic in 1927, solo, incredible feat. Coolidge bitched about spending the money to bring him back on a ship. Okay, he's an international hero, and you don't want to spend the money to bring him back. That was Coolidge. Okay, these are small government people, and the government was very small at this time. Okay, the federal government just didn't do much. It built post offices. It helped build roads. We didn't have the highway system until Eisenhower in the 1950s. Okay, so really the government didn't do much. The Army and the Navy, okay, we had the Air Service. We didn't have the Air Force yet. Okay, and so it just didn't do much. They didn't spend much. Okay, so they're going to cut taxes. Now, one of the major problems coming out of World War I was war debts. Okay. Now, to this point, guys, I have given you one cause of the Great Depression. We're going to end up with 6. What was the first one? It's on the last slide at the top. Tariffs. Okay. It's going to clog the flow of trade. Okay. We're trying to protect American businesses. In the long term, we're going to hurt America. Okay. The second cause of the Great Depression we're going to talk about is this. Guys, remember, we did not get in the war until 1917. So we were helping our friends by spending a lot of money on their behalf. So I've put together a nice little infograph for you guys, because you're going to have to explain this on the test as well. Yeah, sure. You got to explain it. So during World War I, we loaned the equivalent of about $9 billion to our allies. That's a lot of money. That's in those dollars. In 19-teens dollars. Most of this is spent in the United States, but we're sending them supplies. You follow it? Food, fuel, weapons. So they borrowed the money. They need to pay it back. Right? Now, remember how devastating this war was, especially to the French. 2 million dead. British, 750,000 dead. Just devastating. Okay? So they're going to have trouble paying it back. But what they're going to do with the Treaty of Versailles is they're going to hit Germany hard. so that Germany will never rise again to start another world war, right? Oh, how that turned out. So they're going to punish Germany with reparations to the tune of, check this out, $33 billion. Germany just got done through four years of hell. They lost 2 million men, millions wounded. How in the heck is Germany going to pay for this? It's going to be difficult. So, the only way Germany can get some extra money, besides their devastated economy, is to borrow it from us. Now, we're not going to give Germany $33 billion. We don't have $33 billion. We're talking here a couple of billion over time. Okay? So what Germany will do is they will take these loans from the United States, use that money to pay the Allies reparations. Then the Allies are going to turn around and give us that money back. But not $9 billion. Sure. So guys, about 10 years ago, I was maybe 13 years ago, I think it was 2010, see a news article come across. Germany pays its last installment to Britain on that $33 billion in the year 2010. They paid it. They freaking paid it, dude. So from 1990 to 2010, that's how long it took Germany to pay off that war debt or the reparations. That's freaking nuts. Okay? Now, guys, the French, during this time period between World War I and World War II, as you get into the 1920s and even to the 30s with the Depression, this area, I'll talk more about this in detail, but this area of Germany that borders France, okay, was a demilitarized zone. The French were not allowed to put troops, the Germans were not allowed to put troops on the French border. No military. It's a demilitarized zone. So the French sent troops into Germany, this region known as the Ruhr region, which is rich in coal. And the French sent their military into Germany and took coal at gunpoint as payment for these reparations. Now, let's just pretend for a minute that we owed a bunch of money to Canada. And the Canadians told us, you cannot put any troops on your northern border with us. We can put troops on our border with you. In fact, we're going to send troops into your Dakotas, and we're going to take wheat and corn as payment for what you owe us at the point of a gun. How are the American people going to respond to that? How do you think the German people feel about this? Guys, not only is this a cause of the Great Depression, this is a cause of World War II. You're giving Hitler or somebody like Hitler all the ammunition they need to come to power. The Treaty of Versailles is a stab in the back of the German people. Now, here's the good thing about history, guys. After World War II, we will behave far differently. You understand? Because we're going to learn our lesson from this. Now, we had a separate treaty with Germany. Okay, we didn't punish them. We helped them. And we will again after World War II. But the European allies will behave far different. Okay? Because you don't want history to repeat itself. Okay? So they really stuck it to the Germans. Okay? Now, I'm not excusing Adolf Hitler or his behavior, but we have to look at it and say, look what they did to the Germans. Okay? Now, the Germans are blamed for starting the war where there were 40 million casualties and between 8 and 9 million war-related deaths. So should they be punished? Okay, yeah, maybe, yeah. You know what I mean? You gotta figure this out, the right way to do this. Okay. Now, the only country that would pay us back was Finland. We would end up forgiving most of these debts. And guess what? In World War II, we're going to loan a bunch more money and stuff to the British, to the Russians, to the Chinese, okay? And we won't receive payment for that either, okay? Finns, they paid us back, okay? Now, even when the Depression hit, when the Depression hit, guys, they blamed us because they're like, you're making us pay these war debts back. So they're blaming us. And then we had these tariffs on their goods. So they blamed us again. You know what I mean? So, maybe we do bear some responsibility here, but still, there was a time when Hoover was elected. Hoover said, listen, we're going to do a 1-year moratorium. You don't have to pay any debts for 1 year. Get your houses in order and then start paying us again. That didn't work either. Okay? No, we don't want that. Now, the death of Harding. I told you about Albert Fall, the Teapot Dome scandal. Remember, he was leasing federal lands to oil companies and taking the money for himself. And then Harry Daugherty, the attorney general, caught up in scandal, tries to commit suicide, fails. This is making Harding look corrupt. So Harding is out. He's out campaigning. He's out visiting. And now you don't have a lot of air travel at this point. So he's traveling by train all across the country. Harding is out in Northern California. What is he doing? Just like Biden's having to do right now. He's having to deflect these scandals. Every time a reporter sees his press secretary or Joe Biden, what are they asking about? Classified documents, right? Right? That's the big news story right now. So anyhow, he's deflecting. He's working hard. He's trying to, overcome these scandals. And he gets sick. He's overworked. He gets pneumonia. He's got walking pneumonia. At the end of a long day, he goes up a big flight of stairs into his hotel in Northern California, collapses on the bed, and dies. The autopsy showed Harding had an enlarged heart. That in combination with the pneumonia just killed him. So in some ways you could say Harding's friends, the Ohio gang, kind of led to his death. Okay? Because he overdid it. Now, Coolidge is the vice president. Remember, Coolidge was the guy that called in the National Guard when the Boston police went on strike. Coolidge is on the family farm in rural Massachusetts when Harding dies in California. There's no telephones. So Harding is asleep at the farm. His mom has passed. It's just him and his dad on the farm. No electricity on the farm. So in the middle of the night, sorry, I didn't mean to wake anybody up. So in the middle of the night, there's a knock on the door at the Coolidge farm. It's just him and his dad. It's a telegraph guy. He says, "We have a telegraph for you, Mr. Vice President." He opens it. News. President Harding has passed away in California. Looks like I'm going to become president. So they go back to bed. He goes, told his dad, I'm going to have to travel to Washington tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to get up. And then about an hour later, there's a knock on the door. It's the telegraph guy again. He's like, you need to be sworn in as president. We don't have one. Here's the oath of office. You need to be sworn in. Now, guys, in order to be sworn in, you need it to be official. You need a judge or a justice of the peace or a notary. Do you guys know what a notary public is? No, you've never had anything notarized? Okay, one day you will, okay? And so it's somebody, Deb Beaker, who is Miss Nielsen's secretary down in the advancement office, she is a notary. So if you need a document to be notarized, it means that somebody official has watched you sign the document. So you sign the document in front of them and they notarize it, making it an official document, okay? So if you ever need one, you can just look it up on Google it and you can find somebody. They might charge you like $5 to do it, okay? So anyhow, Coolidge's dad is a notary, okay? But you need a witness, like the telegraph guy. So, under candlelight, on the family farm in the middle of the night, on a family Bible, Calvin Coolidge is sworn in as President of the United States by his father, and the witness is the telegraph delivery guy. That's how he became president. That's a good story, isn't it? And of course, you guys know about how Lyndon Baines Johnson, when Kennedy was assassinated, he was on Air Force Two, the vice president's plane, and he was sworn in, making that Air Force Two now Air Force One. Probably. All right.
It does.
What do you mean? It's got
Well, like since it became Air Force One in like the middle of the air, now it has like more landings.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take off.
Oh, I got you. Yes. Although I think they were on the ground when they did it.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So Coolidge is now our president. Okay. His nickname, Silent Cow. He did not like the public eye. He did not like to talk in public. Not like Jefferson. Okay. So keeping it cool with Coolidge. The Jazz Age. All right, we'll get into some fun stuff here, okay? The 20s. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about this. You guys are growing up in the 2020s. You guys are teenagers in the 2020s, okay? I was a teenager in the 80s, okay? So if you think back, like through American history, like what decade would have been the funnest decade to be alive as a teenager and into your early 20s? Okay, the 60s and 70s was more of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Late 60s, okay? Yeah, but you got all those hippies, man. But if you like the music, which I do, okay? What about the 20s, guys? The what? The 20? You like it? You think this is a good time? You get? I mean, you guys enjoying your teens? Guys, there was no drinking period in the 20s. Oh, but there was.
There's no drinking age though.
No? Because it was all illegal, right?
No polio, no chicken pox. Yeah, you got polio and stuff.
Yeah?
I do the 90s.
Have any of you guys seen a movie called Dazed and Confused? Laura? Seen Dazed and Confused?
Not worth it.
Okay. If you want to see a couple movies of the 80s, like growing up in the 80s, Breakfast Club. Okay.
That'd be the 80s version.
Yeah.
Well, there's
And then
that 90s
Dazed
stuff.
and Confused is a great movie.
Is that the 80s?
We don't talk about the 80s. The 80s suck, man.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High is also an 80s one. But I watched it again a few months ago, and I'm like, I cannot believe they made this movie. Okay, it's freaking crazy. Okay, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Okay. It's R. Yeah, that'd show you what it's like to grow up in the 80s. Those three films. Okay, I'm going to read this to you. This is from the old textbook. I like the way they say this about the 20s. Okay, so if you'll indulge me. In the 1920s, the sound of radios and phonographs began to fill the air. For the first time, motion pictures opened up fantastic vistas for the millions. Americans started their love affair with the automobile. Women's skirts, which had once been thought dangerously high when they revealed a glimpse of the ankle, now suddenly shot up to the knee.
Wow.
No.
Yes, long hair had been called a woman's crowning glory. Now, respectable women cut their hair in a boyish bob. And actually wore lipstick.
How dare they?
Oh.
Some women even smoked cigarettes in public. Yeah, yeah. At the same time, there were still many old-fashioned Americans. They were shocked by what they saw. Women, they said, ought to be put on a pedestal where they had neither the freedom nor the temptations of the rest of the human race. It is in this and other ways, the 20s was an age of conflict, confusion, excitement, and experiment. Never was the nation more American. This was still the new world where people might try anything, at least once. Huh? Yeah. So, guys, there is a sexual revolution here, right? Women are now voting. Women have the right to vote. Women are now saying, you know what? I don't need to be told what to do by a man. Okay, so we do see women's liberation here, okay, which does lead to what you would refer to as a sexual revolution, okay? So, old-fashioned people didn't like the change, but here it is, okay? New products for living. So the automobile, guys, last year you studied interchangeable parts, okay? So you add interchangeable parts to the assembly line, and you get what's known as mass production. So you go from steam-powered factories, coal-powered factories, to electrified factories. Okay, so we're talking about mass production of goods. So by 1918, there were already 7 million cars on the road. Okay, in 1922 alone, they produced 2 million. In 1929, 5 million automobiles were produced. The thing is, guys, these were affordable to the middle class. Henry Ford said, I'm going to build a car that my workers can afford to buy. And they were some of his biggest customers, people that worked for Ford Motor Company, which grew and grew and grew. Okay. And then you had other companies spring up. Some survived, some did not. Okay. General Motors, obviously. Chrysler came about. Pontiac was another one. You guys heard of Pontiac? Okay. You won't after a while. They don't make Pontiacs anymore. Okay. Buick. Okay. And they tried the Edsel, which is Henry Ford's son was Edsel, okay? And I was listening to the radio a couple weekends ago. They were going through the whole Ford, the whole thing. It was pretty interesting. Okay, so this changes not only how we live, but where we live. No longer do you have to live in the city to work in the city. You can drive. So you got to build roads and bridges. and tunnels, okay, to accommodate this new way of living. Now, guys, I don't know how you feel about this. We kind of do have a romantic thing with our automobiles. Do you remember the first time you drove away from the house without having to have a parent driving with you, and you pulled away? That sense of freedom that you had? You don't really remember that? I mean, like, you guys like to, like, turn the radio up loud in your car, sing, roll the windows down. I don't roll the windows down when my wife's in the car. She doesn't like it. When I'm by myself and it's a nice day, the windows are coming down. And by the way, I just said roll down the windows. Who does that? Does anybody still have a car? You guys still have cars that you have to roll down the window?
Yes.
Oh, that's.
Yes, I did.
What are you driving?
82.
82 what?
C20.
Oh, C20, so it's Chevy. Nice. What are you driving? A work truck?
Yeah, it's
Stock. No electric windows. Okay. But we still say roll down the windows. Isn't that funny? Okay. So, I don't know, guys. I had an 8-track in my first car. First thing I did when I had enough money, I bought a cassette stereo for my car. Bought some new speakers that went in the back window. And I was rocking. Okay. I loved it. It's freedom for me. I don't know. Some of you don't feel that way. I don't get it. But anyhow, guys, remember, like, when we went through the age of the muscle car, okay, like the late 60s, the late 50s, your 57 Thunderbird, okay? You get into the 60s, the Corvettes. You got the Mustang comes around, okay, the Chevelle, okay, Camaro, these 68 Cougar. I mean, like, these cars are freaking awesome. And then they remake them now, the Dodge Charger from the 70s. Beast, man. Had a 442 in it. Okay. We got no motorheads in here. Like, I used to be able to, like, work on my car. You know what I mean? Like, it had a carburetor instead of a fuel injection. I used to have to stick a screwdriver in my carburetor to start it. Like, to open it up so it would get the fuel in there. And I knew how to do that. Like, I could fix things. You can't fix anything on these new cars. A whole bunch of computers, right? All right, so motion picture, sound pictures. Guys, many people didn't travel out of the city or town they were born in. So you go to the movies, guys, you've seen pictures of the beach. You've seen pictures of the Eiffel Tower. But when you go to the movies and you can actually see the waves moving, on the big screen, and then they added sound to it. Guys, Hollywood, like, became huge. Like, people would go to the movies every week. You understand? Multiple times a week. Okay? Cost you a nickel to go to the movies. Okay? It's huge. Okay. Radio. Okay? Phonograph. You guys know what a phonograph is? What's a phonograph? It's a record player. Okay? They're kind of coming back in. The vinyl. You guys have record players at your house? You know what a record looks like? I got a great album collection. The 70s and 80s. Kiss Alive 2. I got Beatles albums. I got everything. You name it, I got it. Got a great album. No. Refrigerators. What did you do? We take for granted these refrigerators. What did you do before refrigerators? Ice. Yeah, ice box. Yeah. So where do you get the ice? Who brings you the ice?
Ice man with the big old ice tongs.
Yeah, he's got the tongs, okay, and he brings it. Now, where do they get the ice? They get the ice in the wintertime in the north on the rivers, lakes, and streams, right? They cut it out. and blocks of ice, okay? And then they transport it by rail or truck to the South. Now, what do they like to drink in the South? Iced tea, baby. Not any kind of iced tea. Sweet tea. Yeah, they don't even ask. It's all sweet in the South, okay? I lived in the South. I think tea's disgusting, okay? I don't drink it. But that's like you go to a wedding, that's all they serve. Sweet tea, water, okay? So, you've heard of Southern hospitality, right? Guys, that's a real thing. Any of you guys ever lived in the South? Now, you just went to the South, some of you went to D.C., because that's D.C. First time in 8th grade, I went to D.C. with my class. And at breakfast, they had grits. And I'm like, what the hell is that? That is disgusting. First time I ever saw grits in my life. Okay? And then we moved to the South. And guys, let me tell you something. People in the South are really friendly. Like most people, they will smile at you. They will look you in the eye. They will wave. They will say hello. Okay? When I moved to Wichita from the South, I'm driving into my neighborhood. There's somebody walking on the sidewalk. So literally, I'm in my vehicle. They're literally about 25 feet away from me on the sidewalk. I'm looking at them. I'm waving. And they won't even look at you. They won't even acknowledge you. Like, what the hell's wrong with these people? They're rude. Now, if you go out to Coleridge, how you doing? In Wichita? It's like Chicago, man. What are you looking at? You know, you look at somebody in that and you're like, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me? So, it's 1900. You're in Hotlanta, Georgia. And you're having people over and you're going to serve sweet tea on ice. You go into your cellar in the backyard, because you dig a hole in the backyard. You keep it underground. You know how your basement's always cooler, right? Now, some people had nice cellars, some didn't. Might be a dirt floor. Hopefully you got some wood or something you can lay down. You got your chunks of ice, blocks of ice. And as Emma said, you'd cover it with sawdust to prevent it from melting, not salt. Salt melts ice. Okay? And then you take your ice pick and take a chip off the old block of ice. And you might have some sawdust in your sweet tea when you serve it, but you know, people got used to it. Okay? You've heard that chip off the old block before. That's where that comes from. Okay? All right, sorry. So, the refrigerators back then, guys, it was basically a cooler which you put ice in it and try to keep it cool. Okay? Now, dude, you don't have to do that anymore. Awesome. Iron, toaster, washing machine, vacuum cleaner. All of these things are mass produced by the millions, creating millions of jobs and lots of money. Okay? So the 20s was pretty fantastic in that way. Here's a 1920s GE toaster. Okay? So you got these little flips here. Okay? Handles. You pull this up, you put the bread in there, put it back down. It's got the heating element. You can go one on each side. Okay? What's that? Now, other advances during the 1920s, guys. You talked about polio and stuff, right? Living with that. Okay, well, these are brought under control. Typhoid fever, diphtheria, measles, all brought under control. Okay, which was good. These are good medical advances. Typhoid fever, guys, can kill you, just like the flu or some type of, fever. Diphtheria, your esophagus swells, so you can't swallow. So you could die from diphtheria as well. And measles, oftentimes accompanied with a high fever, which can kill you. Okay. Now they came out with the measles vaccine in 1963. Okay. So I can pretty much guarantee you, there's only one person in this room that has had the measles. When I was 5. Anybody had the chicken pox in here? You had the chicken pox? How was that? Do you remember? Right? You still have scars? I still have scars. It's nasty. When we were kids, I got chicken pox too. They would do chicken pox parties. Oh, your kid's got chicken pox? Can I bring my kids over? Because you want it when you're a kid, right? You don't want chicken pox as an adult. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty interesting stuff. Measles is like chicken pox on steroids. It's nasty. I had a picture. I wish I could find it. No, maybe not. When I was 5, I'm just covered in sores. My face, my body. It was. But life expectancy, guys, is going to continue to rise. Okay, so if you look here, this is the 1920s. Okay, you see a jump of almost 7-8 years in one decade of life expectancy. So people are working fewer hours, better living conditions, better health conditions, okay? And people have disposable income. Like at the end of the month, after you pay all your bills, you have some money left over. And you have some time. You know what you need? Entertainment. Okay? So we're going to want to get entertained. And this country's really good at that. Okay? At entertainment. Okay? Now, we spend a lot of money on education, guys. This is not a lot. The United States, the citizens and the government combined, the Americans spent more on education than the rest of the world combined in 1929. Free school from kindergarten through high school. The number of colleges and universities in the United States is massive. So you got a lot of people going to university, okay, and college, okay, and so we took education very seriously, and it paid benefits in the long run, okay. So these are some pretty neat advances in the 20s, and we get out 35. Okay, so I'm gonna pick up with that. Today's. Is it Tuesday? Oh, I thought it was Monday for a second. This week we're gonna. I'll stop talking and show you a video. Okay. I'll show you a video on the 1920s, so it'll help reinforce some of the things that I have in the notes. And like I said, guys, the video motion picture is available, so we get to actually watch some of the history take place as it happened, which will be fun. And if you stay awake, you get 2 points. Good?